Let me see. Ah, I saw myself. Maybe. Yep, there we go. Haha. Great. So it's there. So I will give it a couple minutes for people to show up. Is this laggy? Is it laggy? Is it laggy? Hello, Christina. Hello. Oh, I'll give it a couple more minutes for everybody to show up. Because today's gonna be fun. We're gonna be being even more detailed than usual. Also, make sure next week is the Costume Your Cards Challenge. I'm so excited. But you need to sign up for it. Otherwise you won't get it unless you're in the course. So you need to sign up for it even if you won't be there. You need to get it because you'll get the replay and you'll get the workbook sent to you no matter what. So make sure that you sign up. There's the link for it at the top. Let me go ahead and add the link for it here. That's not what that address is. Hang on. Hang on. Get the link. But make sure you do it, okay? Otherwise you won't get it. Unless you know you buy it separately and stuff like that. Yep, thank you, Christina. We'll pin Christina's comment. There we go. Awesome. So, this week, we're going to be going over... Well, first, a couple of announcements. First of all, the YouTube channel got a bit of a makeover. So if you guys actually go onto the channel, now everything is full of pretty thumbnails and everything, and it's organized into playlists, and it looks awesome. So it should be a lot easier to find stuff. Also, you'll notice I did send out to people that are subscribed to the Taro and Tea list that if they want to talk to me and have some one-on-one time, I sent out an invitation to you. So if you're a part of the list, you got it. Just sign up for a time and we sit and we chat. I talked to Janessa yesterday and I talked to Helena and it was awesome. I'm so glad to see you guys growing your practices. So take advantage of it if you have questions. I'm happy to give answers. What else? All the other announcements you guys get to wait. Because there's more fun things coming, but there's surprises right now. So this week, we are talking about color as a mood setter for your tarot cards because you've probably seen some videos or some studies or heard somebody talk about how the colors that are around you can influence your mood, especially, you know, us spiritual woo-woo people. We take individual things like that, like color, really seriously. So when it comes to color in your cards, it can give the same effect. Exactly. So, like, for example, if there are studies to where you figure out what color makes a certain mood happen. So, for example, McDonald's is purposely colored red and yellow to induce hunger. And it pops, it gets your attention, so it comes like that. There were some studies in the UK where a couple of the prisons put pink on the doors and it quieted down the prisoners. There's not as much noise, and there's less fights because pink was a calming color. Now, yes, there are some exceptions to this. For example, I hate the color pink, so I would not like that door. So I would not be very calm about it. But there's a general consensus, and it can easily be broken down into the color wheel. If you guys remember art class in school, you talk about your primary colors, you know, red, yellow, blue, your secondary, and then your tertiary colors, and they separate into warm colors and cool. And that artists have been using this for years, where the warm colors will signify energy and moving forward and fire and just life, whereas the cool colors give a depressing mood. So if you pay attention to Picasso's Blue Period, his series of paintings, they're all literally the color blue, and he goes off of the blue palette. He has his purples and his greens and everything in there for the cool colors, because that's how he was feeling, and he was conveying his emotion through his art. Taro does the exact same thing. We're just looking at really pretty cards. And it doesn't matter if you're using a traditional system or if you're using an indie deck. Color is super important because it's going to tell you so much about that person's personality. It's going to draw the eye in a certain direction, just like texture can and clothes. And when it comes to your clothes, we talked about over the past couple weeks how history has a huge part in this, especially when it comes to the availability of certain pigments at certain times. So if you have a deck that has a set time period and there's somebody with an odd color standing out, that's gonna say something a little bit about that person. Does that make sense? Christina says, I studied the color wheel in beautician school and I'm glad I got that training because I use it so much in everything I do. Exactly! And you get this kind of thing in all kinds of different ways. Okay, there's a reason why I picked green for the primary color for this group. It's really grounding, it goes with your heart chakra, and it's very loving and friendship and community, and it's super open. Okay, there's a specific reason why I pick certain colors, and I bet if you go throughout your day, you'll find what colors you're most attracted to. So for example, it looks like I'm wearing black again, but I'm wearing like a dark navy. But there's a reason why I pick a lot of darker colors, because they're very slimming. It's also to repel energy. But if you're in a bright, sunny mood, you're more likely to wear orange or yellow, because you're emitting, happiness. And those are very happy colors. There's a reason why your favorite color is your favorite color. It displays a mood that you love or you would like to be in. And if you think back throughout your life, the colors that you have associated yourself with have a meaning, and there's a reason for it. So for example, when I was younger, I've never liked a specific color. I've liked genres of color. So I liked metallics when I was in middle school. I was all about gold and silver and bronze, and shiny things. And then I switched to prints. I liked having more than one color, especially zebra print and cheetah print. Now, my favorite genre color is autumn colors. I love my warm oranges and reds and browns, because that's what calls to me. Except for, I'll get into my earthy browns and greens moods sometimes. But that's just how I am. But if you have, for example, my mother's favorite colors are royal colors. She likes the royal blues and the royal purples and the royal reds. So boldness. She's a very bold woman, whereas I'm the more grounded one. So you can kind of tell of a difference just by paying attention to what their favorite color is. Chrissy, does it make sense? Good. So with Taro, we usually break color down into the minors, right? And we correspond them with the elements that we usually give them. So we have our wands fire, swords air, pentacles earth, and cups water. So those each go to a color, usually red and orange for fire, yellow or white or gray for swords for air, greens and browns for pentacles, and then you have your blues and very, very light purples and greens for water. So you already have your moods of color. You can already tell this when you look at the cards themselves. And it's a tiny detail. It seems like it wouldn't matter in the long run, but it really does, especially if you look at an entire spread, even if it's 3 or 2 cards. And you can tell what mood is dominating by looking at the color. Okay, so I have my lovely Witch's Taro here. Let's do an example and switch it up. Okay, so first off, these are the majors, actually. So, for example, we have the lovers here, and if we get a angle here. So this is this depiction of the lovers. We have this angel up in the clouds, and then you have, more of a modern Romeo and Juliet up in the front. The major color throughout this card that you can even tell just by looking at it is purple and pink. So very soothing, very calming. And more specifically, like some periwinkle, some lavender in here. It's not a deep color except for the sky. Just tiny little corner of the sky. And even though it's shadowed in the foreground and it's mainly blacks and browns that we have mixed in here, you can still that it's a pinkish hue. This guy in the front is not wearing a white shirt. You can easily tell that just from how it's shaded. So automatically you have a mood for this card. It's super loving, it's super calming, and it gives more... It's not baby pink or baby blue, so it's not childish. We associate those with children. So this is not a childish love, this is a mature love, especially from the way the clothing is presented here, because this is a clothing workshop. So he is not wearing a robe or a tunic like Rider-Waite Smith. It's not that time period. This is a little bit more modern. He's wearing pants and a belt and then like a work shirt. So it's more, this is a businessman who's probably on vacation and he met this wonderful woman and they're enjoying more of a mature kind of attraction to each other. They enjoy talking with each other. They enjoy holding each other's hands. It's something, it's like falling in like with somebody like you used to see in the older films, like the black and white films. People would fall in like with each other before they fell in love. You know? What do you guys feel about this card? What kind of mood does it give you? All three people here. Say hi if you're here. And there's no wrong answers either. And this is what tells you really more about yourself as well, the way that you take the colors in the cards. If you don't like a card, what is it specifically about? One thing that you can look at is the color. Is it a color that you don't like or that you don't find yourself wearing a lot of the times? I personally like this a little bit better than the Rider-Waite Smith because this one's a little bit more muted colors. It's a lot softer. There's a lot more gray and white mixed into the palette here. And it makes it more relatable than giant angel naked people, you know. Hi, Anna! Christina, white, purity, softness. Yeah, exactly. White, especially if you think of the color white. White is hard to get any kind of stains out of. Unless you have some really good shout. But if we take this in terms of time period, especially because we talked about how Rider-Waite Smith is between the 1100s and the 1500s. So they did not have washing machines. They washed everything with their hands. And it made it so much more difficult to get anything dirty. So this is something, especially with the angel in the background, if she has enough money to get her clothes taken care of. If she was not an angel, like a spiritual being, she would have enough money for that kind of thing. And even with the kind of cut that you have on the dress here, it's a little hard to tell from the live stream, but it looks like silk. Okay, the type of fabric it is, which one is hard to dye, and then two, it's hard to maintain, especially since they're out there in the field where it can get dirty and everything. So both of these people have money enough for her to have this dyed silk dress on and these flowers on her hair for her to go frolicking. Okay. Melinda feels calm, beautiful, and loving. Exactly. Just from looking at the color. It's awesome. Hi, Melinda. Mary sparkling hello to you as well. So, there's another one. The Hanged Man. Okay? A little bit different here. And this is a little bit different than the Rider-Waite that we looked at last week. So, he's wearing a blue tunic top. Okay? He would have a belt on. That's implied from the way that his shirt is falling right now. Otherwise it would, we can see his chest. But he obviously has a belt on underneath, so he's got some leather. Leather's expensive. It's a bright blue. The amount of indigo that went into making that shirt is probably quite a bit. So he's already got money. And then just the lackadaisical way that he's just on here. Like, it's different than the other one. He's tied around the waist to this tree. He's got his foot up here. And then he's just chilling. You know, he's not trying to swing free. He's not trying to do nothing. He's just, woo. And then he's got this halo around his head. And then we talked about Red before. So he's got a balance of passion and calmness. He's got strength down because he's half blue and half red, you know? So, and then he's surrounded by the other colors for the elements. So we have some yellow clouds back here because of the sun reflecting off of the clouds. You have some very, very green leaves here. He's on a very fertile and prosperous tree. And then you have, you know, your negative colors and your positive colors. So you have your white and then you have your black. So there's a good balance of energy in general in this card. This guy's not out of balance. He's just chilling. And that really shows just looking at the colors for here, you know? Yellow, blue, red, all the primaries. Yes, he's a basis. That's a really good thing to point out. And it's also interesting to point out, I had mentioned this before, but when it comes to lighting, the primary colors aren't red, blue, yellow. Because if you mix red, blue, yellow when you're making a light fixture and you're shining it on a stage or on an area, you get a yellow light. But if you do red, blue, green, then you get a fluorescent white light. So that's very interesting here that he's got the primaries for the color wheel, and then he's got the primaries for if you're doing lighting. Because he's got green in here because of the tree. That's an awesome thing to notice. I know, it's so fun. But, and that really goes with the idea of what the Hanged Man is. He's balanced in all aspects, and he can afford to sit there and chill because he's rich enough to have these pigments and he knows someone's going to come get him. You know? So, yeah, the more you know, it makes it super interesting. Let's get a minor here. Ooh, I love this version. Miss Queen of Wands. I love her. She's so cool. So, she doesn't have a black cat. She has a white kitty sitting on her lap. White tabby. The wands in this deck have white flowers on the end, and then she has like these white flames in the back, which is interesting because if you think of fire and how hot fire is when it burns, it has a gradient of color. When it is at its coolest, even though it might not feel very cool, it's red, then it goes to yellow, then blue, then white. Okay, white flame is the hottest flame, and you don't want to touch white flame. So that's very interesting that instead in the background it goes from this gradient of black to maroon to bright red to this pink and then white. That's super interesting. Another thing, she's wearing silk. She can afford to have that dyed yellow. Yellow and orange. The way it's cut underneath, you can tell that it has been cut and sewn back in place. She has the money to pay people to sit there and embroider that. And then you look at this wheel on her chair. First of all, it's not a very comfortable chair, so you know that she's not sitting in it all day. But she can afford to have this light oak wood that you can see kind of the back of it over here, with this red velvet on the arms and this red cushion that would be underneath her dress. And then this stained glass mosaic dial in the back that you can kind of see. So that gives a lot of information to the kind of people, well, the kind of person that she is, and the kind of detail that she likes, because this was going to take forever. If it took forever to dye clothes, it took forever to frickin' dye glass and get that color right. So, especially as it goes to brown, that's a really dark pigment. So that's going to take up a lot of resources. She's got the money for that because she's a queen. And then she has a bouquet of sunflowers, and she has a solid gold Anastasia-like crown on her head. She's a duchess. So, she is the epitome of a solar plexus. She's just yellow and nurturing and warm. And it's funny because the description for this book, for the Witch's Tarot, which is what we're looking at today, they have her as the soccer mom. The mom that goes to the PTA and is super involved in everything. And I could easily see that with just looking at the pigments and looking at who she is. She's super warm, she's sociable, she's likable. Anytime I think of the solar plexus, I just think of the Italian grandmother that you come to my house and I feed you a million things and I give you wine and I give you toys and then you leave. And then I'll come back tomorrow and I'll do it all again. So she really gives me that vibe. But at the same time, she's a fiery redhead, a dark redhead, that is very much of, don't get on my bad side, otherwise I may put arsenic in your pie, you know. Anna says that's really interesting, things you never think about. Art classes only teaches you color wheel. Yeah, and if you think about it as well, art class actually can give a lot of preparation because tarot is super artistic, it's super visual, and it kind of trains you for looking at tiny symbolism like this. So even though, yes, it was boring to take notes over lines and tints and pigments and all that kind of stuff and the teacher droned on, you can kind of see it at play here. Okay? Because if you think about it, just because I mentioned lines, all her lines are curved. She has no straight lines here. Her chair is curved. The only straight line is this, is the wand. But she's got this red ribbon that's going all the way down. Okay? So it's very much, even though it's a straight thing, it's still adding some gradient to the curve. And on top of that, it's a red ribbon that's being wrapped around it. So it's drawing attention and making things softer because she is a woman. And feminine, make it flow. So she's more the flowy type of fire, you know? And it's super cool. Ooh, opposite here. We have, on this side still, we have an 8 of Cups. So Picasso's blue period. He literally has a painting where it's a blue, it's someone walking on the beach and it's all blue. This person's depressed. Even though, yes, it is at nighttime, and you have 8 stars in the sky, this person is depressed because just from looking at the color. Okay? And it's all gradients of blue and purple here, like very little purple. Okay? And then if you want to get super specific and pay attention to even more detail, they have no shoes on their feet. There's a dolphin here on the side. They could easily hop on the dolphin and go somewhere else. The tide, all the way back here in the back, you see this wall of water heading towards them. So it's just like all these things are going to come crashing into them if they don't leave and they just don't turn back, you know. Yeah, for sure. The blue makes me feel sad but at peace. That's very true. Yes. That's super true. And that's what makes it interesting for the 8 of Cups, because it's not reversed. It's a little bit running from my problems and not looking back because I'm too emotionally involved. But it's also a little bit of, I'm at peace with everything and I'm done, so I have my cups in order. Which is different than if you look at the Rider-Waite-Smith version, because they have that stack of wands, but it's 5 on the bottom and 3 with 1 missing, so it makes it seem like she's taken 1, when she hasn't. This one has it more orderly. She has all of her things in place for this version. Linda says, blue makes me feel tranquility and peace. Yeah, there can be a sense of tranquility with leaving things behind. That's very true. So, even in tarot we associate colors with the different suits as well. Like I talked about in the beginning, and it gives a type of mood and a type of what you can expect from that card. So even if we aren't thinking of setting a mood, we can pop an idea into somebody's head with a color. You know, so green we associate with money a lot of the times, especially in countries where the money actually is green. And then we think of blue for cups. Blue is very free flowing and very tranquil and peaceful, so it's very much a watery kind of color. It's also a reflection of things we see in a lot of the cups, because literally the water in general would be clear, but it reflects whatever is above it. So when it reflects the sky, so it's whatever we're thinking in our minds, because sky is air, so mental processes, whatever we're thinking in our minds is then reflected into how we're feeling at that moment. So it can pop those kind of ideas into your head. So if we were to take this card, take our very tranquil Eight of Cups, and we change the color, what would happen to the meaning of this card? How weird would that be? If, for example, instead of blue, we saw yellow, and everything was yellow, what kind of mood would that give? Let's move this. It'd be a little weird for me, because I remember painting a set, specifically all yellows. We had mustard yellows, we had some Dijon spicy ones, we had some pea-colored yellows, and it wasn't an attractive set for a show. And it made sense because it was about this woman coming back from prison and all this kind of stuff, and she was in a bad place. So naturally the set was not going to make her feel very comfortable because the color was off. The same thing here, because there's so many different shades and tints here. All that yellow would be a little gross sometimes to look at. The perception is definitely different. You're right, Melinda. So that's what we're going to explore when it comes to this workshop. We're going to talk about if we were to change the color of some very prominent cards, how would that change our perception of them? Because it can make a card that we absolutely don't like into something that we do like. So let's pull a card that I don't particularly care for. Okay. Nine of Swords. I have iffy feelings with the Nine of Swords. This is another one of those blue cards, even though it's all swords. Okay? Because this woman is depressed. She's holed herself in, there's the moon outside, she's not seeing things clearly. Because reverse, this can be depression or, suicidal thoughts, things like that, because it's all mental, it's swords. So, if we were instead to take this woman who is lounging here, Lady Godiva style, and put her in a red dress, she would be different. It's like she's waiting for a lover to come home. It would take it from... I'm thinking of West Side Story right now, just to tell you what's going through my mind. Where, which if you haven't heard of that, it's a more modern version of Romeo and Juliet. There is a character, Anita, who is literally waiting for her boyfriend to come home in one of the songs, and she's getting ready, and they're gonna have sex, and it's gonna be wonderful. She's waiting for that. So this would turn more into her waiting for him rather than afterwards when she finds out that he's dead. That color change where she goes from wearing this red dress to wearing this very blue is quite a mood changer, So it's really it can really make some things more tangible for you. It can make you like a card a little bit better or dislike a card that you do like if you change the color palette. And that's why so much thought goes into tarot, and in turn so much thought should go into your reading, especially when you notice these tiny little details. Because there's a reason why the artist did this, and there's a reason why the creator of the deck, the writer, wanted it to be that way. Yes, totally agree. Awesome. So, that's going to be part of what we talk about for the challenge. Not the challenge, for the workshop next week. Again, look at the pinned comment. And make sure that you sign up That way you can go ahead and have, you know, the replay sent afterwards. And the workbook is actually going to include some black and white images that you guys can go ahead and change the color if you want to, if you're a physical person and want to actually color it. Or that way you can more easily see some changes. Great training today. Awesome. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to message me. I'm here. So I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your Friday. I will see you guys next week on Wednesday for the challenge. And I will talk to you later. Bye.